Hi guys, welcome back to Felix BL Stories channel. I hope you enjoy this new story. The night my alpha stepbrother sold our family restaurant, he served the dish I had made for him 7 years earlier, and asked me to admit that it had never meant nothing. He said it in front of 80 guests, 3 cameras, 1 furious property developer, and the aunt who had spent the last month threatening to break his expensive alpha nose with a rolling pin. The plate between us held slices of pear-glazed beef over scallion rice. The sauce shone under the dining room lights. A single charred pear rested on the edge, exactly where I had placed it on the worst and best night of my life. Eric Hahn had remembered every detail. He had remembered the dish after 7 years of silence. He had remembered it while signing a contract that could erase the restaurant where our parents had fallen in love. And when he looked at me across the pass, his cedar and black tea scent held so tightly behind his blockers that it barely reached me, I understood that the sale agreement had never been the whole story. Before I tell you why Eric sold the restaurant, why my name was buried inside its debt, and what really happened when the pantry door locked behind us, remember to like the video and subscribe. This is the YouTube-safe version of our story. The full uncut continuation, adult spicy scenes, alternate alpha point of view, real ending, and bonus epilogue are available on Patreon through the link in the description and pinned comment. To understand why that plate nearly destroyed me, we have to go back 30 days. 30 days earlier, I arrived at Han Park Kitchen with flour on my coat, rain in my hair, and a voice message from Aunt Mina that contained exactly 6 words. Daniel, come home before Eric sells it. I had listened to the message 11 times on the train from Boston. By the time I stepped onto West 38th Street, the rain had turned the sidewalks silver. The old restaurant awning sagged over the entrance. The gold letters our parents had installed after their wedding still read Han Park Kitchen, though the P flickered as if even the sign had lost the energy to argue. An orange notice covered the front window. Property under contract. The words hit harder than Aunt Mina's message. I stood beneath the awning with my suitcase in one hand and my chef's knife case in the other. Through the rain-streaked glass, I could see white tablecloths, dark wood booths, and the long brass light fixture my mother had polished every Sunday morning. I could also see a man in a charcoal suit seated at our best table. Eric sat across from him. I had not seen Eric Hahn in 7 years. He looked older, sharper, and more dangerous than the man who had left before sunrise without saying goodbye. His black hair was shorter now. His shoulders filled his tailored jacket. A silver scent blocker rested at the base of his throat, almost hidden by his collar. He held a pen over a thick contract, while the other man smiled like a person already imagining our kitchen ripped apart. Eric signed the final page. My suitcase slipped from my hand. The bell over the door rang when I entered. Every head in the room turned. Thomas Lee, the head waiter who had worked for my mother since I was 14, froze beside the bar. Aunt Mina stood behind him with both hands wrapped around a rolling pin. A woman I did not recognize sat near Eric with a tablet open. The developer leaned back in his chair. Eric looked at me. For 1 full second, the controlled alpha disappeared. His pen stopped. His pupils widened. The scent blocker at his throat pulsed once, releasing the faintest thread of cedar, black tea, and something painfully familiar. Then his face closed. "You came," he said. I walked to the table and dropped my knife case beside the contract. "You sold it." The developer glanced between us. He was a broad beta in his late 40s with polished teeth and a red silk pocket square. I recognized him from the articles Aunt Mina had sent over the years. Colin Mercer, Mercer Urban Renewal, luxury towers, boutique hotels, and historic buildings that somehow caught fire after refusing to sell. "It is under contract," Eric said. "That orange notice says the same thing in a more honest color." Aunt Mina muttered something in Korean that made Thomas cough into his hand. Eric closed the folder. "This meeting is private. This restaurant is my family's. It is our parents' estate." "Our late parents' estate," I said, "and you did not call me." His jaw tightened. I emailed you. You sent a message titled Asset Resolution. You ignored it. I thought it was one of your quarterly reports. It contained 12 attachments. That proves my point. The woman with the tablet lowered her gaze, but not before I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. Colin Mercer stood and buttoned his coat. Mr. Hahn, perhaps we should continue after the family catches up. No, I said. Stay. I would like to meet the man buying my mother's dining room. He offered his hand. Colin Mercer. I looked at it and then at the contract. What are you building? A residential concept with ground floor retail. A tower. A modern mixed-use property. A tower with a coffee chain where my mother's kitchen used to be. His smile thinned. The neighborhood is changing. So are knife laws. Keep reaching across my table and we can discuss both. Daniel, Eric said. My name in his voice stopped me more effectively than a command. I hated that it still could. I turned on him. How much? That is not a conversation for the dining room. How much did you get for the place where they got married? Aunt Mina slammed the rolling pin onto the bar. Tell him, Eric. Thomas quietly locked the front door. The developer's smile vanished. Eric rose. He was several inches taller than I remembered, or perhaps I had forgotten what it felt like to stand close to an alpha who had once looked at me as though restraint were a physical injury. 8.4 million, he said. The number stunned the room. Even Aunt Mina stopped breathing. Han Park Kitchen sat on a narrow Manhattan lot between a hotel and a luxury apartment building. The restaurant had never made that kind of money, but the land beneath it apparently had. Colin adjusted his cuffs. The price reflects redevelopment potential. I stared at Eric. Then cancel it. I cannot. Do not say cannot when you mean will not. The restaurant lost $412,000 last year. Thomas looked down. Aunt Mina's grip tightened on the rolling pin. Eric continued. The roof needs replacement. The ventilation system is out of compliance. The upstairs office has water damage. 2 tax payments are overdue. The line of credit is exhausted. You could have told me. You left. The words landed between us like a dropped plate. I felt everyone in the room become very still. Eric's expression changed almost immediately, as if he regretted saying it, but he did not take it back. I stepped closer. I left because you made it clear there was nothing here for me. That is not what happened. You left first. Colin cleared his throat. The woman with the tablet spoke for the first time. I am Maya Chen, Eric's business partner. The agreement includes a 30-day due diligence period. Nothing transfers until closing. I turned to her. Meaning? Meaning the deal is signed but not complete. Hope moved too quickly through me. Eric saw it and said, Do not. Do not what? Turn this into a fantasy rescue. I laughed once. You always did hate fantasies you could not model in a spreadsheet. I hate plans that hurt people. Then you should despise this one. Colin picked up his copy of the contract. The due diligence period is not a contest. My company has already placed a substantial deposit. Good, I said. Then you can afford to lose it. Eric's eyes narrowed. What are you proposing? 30 days. We have 30 days. I run the restaurant for those 30 days. Full control of the kitchen, menu, staffing, and marketing. If I prove it can survive, you cancel the sale. Aunt Mina lifted the rolling pin like a sword. Yes. Thomas whispered. Finally. Maya began typing. Colin laughed. Eric did not. You have not worked here in 7 years, he said. I have worked in restaurants every day since I left. You walked out of your last executive chef position 6 weeks ago. I went cold. How do you know that? You are not difficult to find. You looked? His gaze held mine for one dangerous second. Then he said, I reviewed your professional history because your name remains connected to the estate. A lie. Not a complete lie, perhaps, but I knew Eric's lying voice. It became more formal, as if extra syllables could build a wall. I leaned over the table. 30 days. The restaurant would need to generate enough operating profit to justify refinancing. Set the number. Daniel. Set it. Maya looked at Eric. He remained silent long enough for the rain to fill the room. Then he opened the contract, removed a blank page from his leather folder, and wrote 3 figures. $180,000 in gross revenue, he said. No new unpaid liabilities. A passing city inspection. Proof of at least 3 months of forward reservations or contracted events. Thomas made a strangled sound. Aunt Mina said, "In 30 days?" Eric did not look away from me. If Daniel wants to prove the restaurant can survive, he must prove it as it exists now, not as a memory. I took the pen from his hand. His fingers brushed mine. The contact lasted less than a second. My Omega scent rose beneath my blockers anyway. Warm pear and toasted sugar. Eric's nostrils flared. His hand closed into a fist at his side. There it was. The same impossible recognition from 7 years ago. I signed the page. 30 days, I said. Eric signed beneath me. Colin's face hardened. You cannot alter the transaction without my approval. The sale agreement allows the seller to operate the business during due diligence, Maya said, so long as no material damage is caused to the property. I consider this material risk. Eric finally looked at him. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. You are purchasing real estate, Mr. Mercer. You are not purchasing the right to direct my family. It was the first time he had used the word family. It should not have mattered. It mattered too much. Colin gathered his papers. I will see you at closing. He left with rain blowing through the open door. Thomas locked it again. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Aunt Mina marched around the bar and struck Eric in the shoulder with the rolling pin. He barely moved. You secretive, arrogant, emotionally constipated alpha, she said. You could have called him properly. I sent 12 attachments. She hit him again. Daniel laughed despite himself. Eric looked at him. The sound died in Daniel's throat. 7 years vanished for one breath. Then Eric turned to Maya. Prepare operating access, payroll authority, and daily reporting requirements. You are staying? I asked. I am supervising. No. Yes. I asked for control. You have kitchen and operational control. I retain financial oversight until closing. You do not trust me. I do not trust anyone with $400,000 in annual losses. Aunt Mina raised the rolling pin again. Eric stepped out of range without looking at her. I will use the upstairs office, he said. Maya will review the books twice a week. Every expense over $5,000 requires approval. I hate you. His expression did not change. No, you do not. The certainty in his voice was worse than arrogance. It was memory. He walked toward the stairs. I watched him go, then noticed something beneath the chair where he had been sitting. A folded card had slipped from his leather folder. I picked it up. The paper was stained with oil and darkened at the edges. My handwriting crossed the front in faded blue ink. Midnight Pear Galby. For Eric. Do not overcook it, even if you are brooding. My pulse stopped. I had written that card 7 years earlier. I had left it beside his plate on the last night of the summer. I had assumed he threw it away. Daniel, Eric said from the stairs. I looked up. He saw the card in my hand. For the first time since I entered the restaurant, the alpha financial consultant who could negotiate million-dollar deals looked afraid. Give me that, he said. I closed my fingers around it. No. The scent hit me before he moved. Cedar, black tea, heat held behind steel. He came down one step. That is mine. It is my handwriting. You gave it to me. As a joke. His gaze sharpened. You did not mean it as a joke. The room disappeared around us. Aunt Mina stopped breathing near the bar. Thomas became suddenly fascinated by a stack of menus. Maya closed her tablet with careful silence. I forced a smile. 7 years is a long time to keep a joke. Eric held out his hand. Some things do not become less true because time passes. I should have returned the card. Instead, I slipped it into the breast pocket of my chef's coat. Then earn it back, I said. His eyes followed the movement. The next 30 days began with a recipe card against my heart and a sale contract waiting to destroy everything else. On the first morning, I learned 3 facts. First, Han Park Kitchen had exactly 26 days of cash left if we paid every supplier on time. Second, half the kitchen equipment was older than I was. Third, Eric had converted the upstairs office into a command center containing 3 monitors, 2 locked filing cabinets, and a folding bed he pretended not to use. I discovered the bed because I arrived at 5:15 and found him asleep on it in yesterday's shirt. He woke before I made a sound. Alpha reflexes. His eyes opened, focused on me, and softened before control returned. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I work here. It is 5 in the morning. Bread does not respect business hours." He sat up. His collar was open, exposing the silver blocker at his throat. Without his jacket, he looked less like a consultant and more like the man who had once repaired a broken freezer beside me at 2 in the morning. That memory was dangerous, so I looked at the monitors. Spreadsheets covered every screen. One showed projected restaurant cash flow. One showed Eric's consulting firm accounts. The third went dark before I could read it. He had pressed a key. "What was that?" I asked. "Nothing relevant. Everything in this building is relevant. Not my private finances." I leaned against the desk. "You are sleeping here. The due diligence schedule is compressed. You have an apartment 12 blocks away." His eyes flicked toward me. "You remember where I live. I remember where you lived 7 years ago." "I still live there." Of course he did. Eric had always been loyal to places and terrible with people. I placed the recipe card on the desk. He went still. "I need the kitchen numbers," I said. He looked from the card to me. "You said I had to earn it back. You can start by telling me why labor costs doubled in 6 months." He reached for the card, but I covered it with my palm. "Numbers first." His mouth almost curved. Then he opened a spreadsheet. For the next hour, we argued about overtime, supplier contracts, menu margins, and whether my mother's braised short ribs could survive a smaller portion size without Aunt Mina staging a coup. By 6:30, Thomas arrived with coffee. By 7, Aunt Mina brought 3 boxes of pastries and announced that she had contacted every church, alumni group, and Korean community association within subway distance. By 8, the kitchen staff gathered around the prep table. There were 9 of us. Thomas Lee stood at my right, silver-haired and immaculate in his black vest. He had been the first waiter my mother hired, and the last person to leave after her funeral. Aunt Mina stood at my left in a red apron. She had once run pastry at a hotel, but now claimed retirement while working harder than anyone I knew. Jay Kim, our 20-year-old dishwasher, filmed everything for social media when he thought no one was watching. Nora Singh, a beta line cook with a scar across one eyebrow, had been holding the kitchen together since the former chef quit. The others looked tired, uncertain, and hopeful enough to frighten me. I placed the orange sale notice on the prep table. "This is what happens in 30 days if we fail," I said. Nobody looked away. Then I set the recipe card on top of it. "This is what we are fighting for." Eric stood in the doorway. I felt his attention on the card. I continued. "We are not going to save this place by pretending it is still 2009. We are keeping the heart and changing everything around it. New dinner menu, reduced lunch menu, late-night chef counter on weekends, family-style Sunday service, catering packages, private events. We use what our parents built, but we stopped treating memory like a business plan." Eric's expression shifted. The words were his from the night before. "Not as a memory," he had said. I had listened. Nora crossed her arms. With what money? Almost none. That is not comforting. It was not supposed to be. Jay raised his phone. I can make videos. Eric said, no filming without releases. Jay lowered it. I said, film the food. Film the kitchen. Do not film anyone who says no. We tell the truth. 30 days to save a family restaurant. Thomas nodded slowly. People may come for that. They will come once, I said. We make them return because the food is worth it. Aunt Mina slapped the table. And because I will guilt them. That too. For the first time, the staff laughed. Eric remained in the doorway. When everyone moved to their stations, he approached the table. You used my line. You used my recipe. I have never cooked it. You kept it. That is different. How? His eyes lowered to the card. Cooking it would have felt like admitting I expected you to come back. My breath caught. Then Maya appeared behind him with a stack of folders. Eric, Mercer moved the structural inspection to Friday. His expression closed instantly. That is 2 weeks early. He says the contract permits access. It permits reasonable access. He is bringing an engineer and a demolition consultant. Aunt Mina overheard and shouted from the pastry station. Tell him I am bringing a rolling pin and a burial consultant. Maya looked at me. I like her. Everyone does until she aims. Eric picked up the sale notice. Mercer is accelerating pressure. Because he is afraid we might win, I said. He does not believe you can. Do you? The kitchen noise seemed to fade. Eric looked at me for a long moment. I believe you can make people want something, he said. I am less certain you know what to do when they want it. The words were about the restaurant. They were not only about the restaurant. I took the recipe card and slid it back into my pocket. Then keep watching. He did. For 5 days, Eric watched everything. He watched me cut the menu from 42 dishes to 18. He watched me remove 3 classics that had not sold in years and nearly get murdered by Aunt Mina over a discontinued chestnut cake. He watched me negotiate with a fish supplier, repair a broken immersion blender, and teach Jay how to photograph steam without dropping his phone into soup. He watched from the dining room during our first new dinner service. The room filled to only 40%. That was better than the previous week, and nowhere near enough. At 9:15, a table sent back my mother's kimchi stew because it was too spicy. At 9:20, a food blogger posted that our decor looked tired. At 9:40, the reservation system crashed. At 10, our walk-in refrigerator stopped cooling. I heard the alarm and ran downstairs. Nora stood beside the unit with both doors open. Compressor, she said. Maybe relay, maybe death. How long? Food safety gives us less than 2 hours. We had $12,000 in meat, seafood, sauces, and produce inside. I called the emergency repair company. Their earliest technician could arrive at 6 in the morning. Thomas began calling nearby restaurants to ask for cold storage. Aunt Mina loaded pastries into her hatchback. Jay carried crates upstairs. Then Eric appeared in the basement wearing a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Move, he said. Nora stared at him. You fix compressors? I fix incentives. Tonight the incentive is not losing $12,000. He knelt beside the unit and removed the lower panel. I crouched next to him. You know what you are doing? Our parents bought this refrigerator used during their first renovation. That does not answer me. I repaired it 3 times that summer. That summer. The phrase passed between us like scent. I held the flashlight while Eric tested wires. His shoulder pressed against mine. The basement was hot, crowded, and full of the metallic hum of failing equipment. My blockers had been on since before dawn. Stress weakened them. The first trace of toasted sugar slipped into the air. Eric's hand stopped. Your blocker, he said quietly. I know. You need to replace it. I need to save the food. Daniel. Eric. His jaw flexed. He returned to the compressor, but his cedar scent deepened. Not aggressive, protective, controlled so tightly it made my own pulse unsteady. Nora glanced between us and decided she had urgent business upstairs. We were alone behind the open refrigerator doors. Eric reached into the wiring compartment. "Hold the light higher." I did. "You kept the recipe card," I said. "Now? You are trapped beside me." It seemed efficient. "I was not trapped until you started talking. Why did you keep it?" He adjusted a wire. "Because you gave it to me. I gave you other things. I kept those too." My hand shook. The light moved. Eric looked at me. "What things?" I asked. "A ticket from the ferry." I remembered the ferry. We had taken it after closing, because neither of us wanted to go home to the awkward new family dinner our parents had planned. "The paper crown from your birthday dessert," he continued. "You hated that crown." "I hated wearing it in public. You wore it for 2 hours. You laughed for 2 hours." The compressor clicked. Cold air shuddered through the unit. Neither of us moved. Eric's face was close enough for me to see the faint scar near his chin. I remembered when he got it. He had slipped carrying a stock pot and refused stitches until I threatened to call our parents. "You left before I woke up," I said. His expression changed. "Daniel, you kept scraps of paper for 7 years, but you could not leave a note." The refrigerator motor strengthened. He lowered his gaze. "If I had left a note, I would have said too much." Maybe I needed too much. His hand lifted as if he meant to touch my face. It stopped inches away. Restraint had always been Eric's most intimate cruelty. The basement door opened. Thomas called down. "The inspector from Mercer is here." Eric's hand dropped. "At 10:30 at night?" I asked. A man's voice answered from the stairs. "The purchase agreement allows access during operating hours." Colin Mercer descended with a camera, an engineer, and a smile that told me the broken refrigerator had not been bad luck. Colin aimed the camera at the open refrigerator. "Equipment failure during service," he said. "That belongs in the due diligence report." Eric stood. His shirt was damp at the collar, his hands marked with grease, but the change in him was immediate. He became the alpha who sat across from hostile boards and made powerful men reconsider their confidence. "The unit is operating," he said. "It was not when I entered. You entered a locked business without notice. Your head waiter admitted me." Thomas appeared at the top of the stairs. He said there was a gas leak. Every muscle in Eric's body went still. Colin lowered the camera by 1/2 inch. "I said there might be a safety issue." "You used the words gas leak," Thomas said. "I remember because my wife died in an apartment fire, and people who lie about emergencies tend to remain memorable." The engineer beside Colin shifted uncomfortably. I stepped between the refrigerator and the camera. "You arrived exactly when our compressor failed. Old equipment fails." "True," I said, "but old equipment does not usually have fresh tool marks on a panel that was locked this morning." Colin's smile vanished. I had noticed the scratches when I held the flashlight for Eric. Bright metal cut through years of dust around 2 screws. Eric looked at the panel, then at me. "Do not touch anything," he said. He took out his phone and called the police. Colin laughed. "You are turning a maintenance problem into theater." "No," Eric said. "You turned my family's restaurant into a crime scene." The word family again. This time, it sounded like a warning. Colin left before the officers arrived, but the engineer remained long enough to give Thomas his card. He had not been told there was a gas leak. He had been told the cellar requested an urgent inspection. The police found no fingerprints worth using, and no security camera in the basement corridor. They called it suspicious but inconclusive. Eric called it a breach. Maya called it leverage. Aunt Mina called it what happened when men with pocket squares were not hit often enough as children. I called it proof that Colin believed we had a chance. By midnight, the food was safe, the refrigerator was cold, and our entire staff had learned that the purchase agreement included a clause requiring both parties to avoid interference with ongoing operations. One more incident tied to Mercer could give Eric grounds to delay closing. It would not save us by itself, but it changed the game. The next morning, Jay posted a 30-second video of Eric repairing the refrigerator. He did not show Eric's face at first. The video opened on polished black shoes stepping into basement water, moved to rolled sleeves and grease-stained hands, then ended with the compressor restarting, while my voice said, "I thought financial consultants only broke things in spreadsheets." Eric answered from off-camera, "I make exceptions for reckless chefs." Jay captioned it with our 30-day challenge. By lunch, it had 40,000 views. By dinner, it had 200,000. The internet decided Eric was mysterious. It decided I was angry. It decided we had chemistry before either of us had admitted we could stand in the same room without bleeding. Reservations doubled for the weekend. Then my phone buzzed again. An anonymous account had posted a photograph from 7 years earlier. Eric and I were sitting on the restaurant roof beneath a string of broken lights. I wore a flower-covered t-shirt. Eric had the paper birthday crown on his head. His hand rested behind me on the ledge, not touching my back but close enough to look possessive. The caption read, "Family restaurant or family scandal." My stomach dropped. We were not related by blood. Our parents had married when I was 24 and Eric was 28. We had both lived independently for years. We had spent only one summer under the same roof while helping our parents renovate the restaurant. The truth was simple. The internet did not prefer simple truths. By noon, people had found my culinary school photographs, Eric's consulting profile, our parents' wedding announcement, and the date he had joined the restaurant's estate trust. The comments divided into 3 groups: people who thought the photograph was romantic, people who thought it was shameful, and people who wanted to know where Eric bought his shirts. A local gossip channel called me the Omega, who came home to seduce his wealthy stepbrother out of an $8 million sale. That afternoon, a woman at table 6 asked if I had put my scent in the food. I heard her through the pass. Nora stopped plating. The entire kitchen went silent. I walked into the dining room. The woman was filming with her phone propped against a water glass. Her 2 friends watched me with the eager expressions of people who had ordered humiliation as an appetizer. "I am sorry," I said. "Could you repeat your concern?" She smiled at the camera. I asked whether Omega pheromones are part of the restaurant's marketing strategy. Thomas approached, but I raised a hand. I had spent years in kitchens where alphas called omegas too emotional for leadership, then screamed at line cooks over parsley. I had learned that shame grew best when fed silence. "No," I said. "Our ventilation system is scent filtered. Our staff follow health regulations. My blockers are medical grade. The only thing in your meal that might influence your judgment is Aunt Mina's rice wine, and she refuses to share the recipe." A few nearby guests laughed. The woman's smile tightened. "So you deny using your relationship with Eric Hand to promote the restaurant?" "I deny having a relationship with Eric Hand that requires your approval." That answer was a mistake. Or perhaps it was the first honest thing I had said. The dining room door opened behind me. Eric entered with Maya. His gaze moved from my face to the filming phone. The woman turned toward him. "Mr. Hahn, would you like to clarify the nature of your relationship with your Omega stepbrother?" The room became silent enough to hear the kitchen burners. Eric removed his coat and handed it to Thomas. Then he walked to my side. Not in front of me. Not behind me. Beside me. "Daniel is an adult," he said. "He is an accomplished chef. He is not a marketing strategy, a scandal, or property for strangers to discuss." The woman lifted her phone higher. "Then there is no romantic relationship?" Eric looked at me. For one dangerous second, I thought he might answer honestly. Instead, he said, "There is no relationship between Daniel and me that excuses your harassment of him in his workplace." It was careful. It was protective. It hurt anyway. The woman laughed. That sounds like a refusal to answer. It is a request for your check. Her expression changed. You are throwing us out? I am paying for your meal, Eric said. You are leaving. You cannot silence the press. You run a gossip account from your apartment. Maya placed a printed page on the table. The woman's face drained of color. Maya smiled pleasantly. You also failed to disclose that Mercer Urban Renewal paid your media company $3,000 yesterday for promotional consulting. That was when the second message arrived. Jay held up his phone from the bar. The payment receipt is online. The dining room erupted. Guests turned their cameras toward the woman. Her friends stood so quickly that one knocked over a chair. Eric did not raise his voice. Leave. They left. The video of the confrontation reached 1 million views by midnight. Reservations filled for the next 10 days. Our revenue target stopped looking impossible. My personal life became public property. That night, I found Eric in the alley behind the restaurant, speaking to someone on the phone. I do not care what the board thinks, he said. Move the liquidation forward. He listened. No, do not tell Daniel. I stepped into the alley light. He saw me and ended the call. What are you liquidating? I asked. Nothing connected to the restaurant. You told someone not to tell me. Because it is not your concern. Your private finances are displayed on a monitor above a folding bed in our office. My office. Our restaurant. His eyes darkened. You do not get to use that word only when you are angry. What word? Our. The alley smelled of wet brick, fryer exhaust, and the cedar scent escaping his blocker. I folded my arms. You defended me in there. They were harassing you. You investigated them. Maya investigated them. Because you asked. He looked away. Mercer's campaign could damage the business. There it is. What? The spreadsheet answer. It is accurate. It is incomplete. His gaze returned to me. So was your answer to that woman. A muscle moved in his jaw. You wanted me to announce something in front of 50 strangers? I wanted you not to look relieved when you denied me. I did not deny you. You said there was no relationship. I said there was no relationship that excused her behavior. That is consultant language for hiding inside a sentence. He stepped closer. You think I was relieved? I think you have spent 7 years making silence look noble. His scent deepened. The alley narrowed around us. I left because our parents had been married for 4 months, he said. Because you were 24 and trying to build a career. Because I was an alpha old enough to understand what everyone would assume. Because one summer beside you had already made me want things I had no right to ask for. My heart struck my ribs. You had the right to ask. Did I? Yes. And if you had said no, then you would have survived. I was less certain. For once, Eric's honesty contained no safe distance. I looked at his mouth. He noticed. His hand lifted, then stopped near my waist. Tell me to move, he said. The fact that he asked made it harder. I stepped back. His hand fell. Not while you are selling the restaurant, I said. Pain moved across his face, quick and controlled. Understood. He returned to the building without touching me. I remained in the alley until the rain began again. The next week should have been a victory. Our late-night chef counter sold out in 4 minutes. Aunt Mina's church network booked 2 Sunday lunches. Thomas convinced 3 former wedding clients to reserve anniversary dinners. Jay's videos turned Nora into an accidental celebrity after she threatened a stock pot on camera. We reached $78,000 in revenue by day 12. Then the city inspector arrived. Her name was Lena Ortiz. She wore practical shoes, carried 2 tablets, and had the expression of a person who could smell an improperly labeled sauce from across a room. Colin arrived 5 minutes later with his attorney. This is not your inspection, I told him. It concerns the property I am purchasing. It concerns my kitchen. Eric stepped between us. Mr. Mercer will observe from the dining room. Colin smiled. Afraid of what she will find? Eric's face remained calm. No. I am afraid Daniel will put you in the walk-in freezer, and I cannot afford the legal distraction. Lena Ortiz looked at me. I already like this inspection. For 3 hours, she checked temperatures, labels, sanitation logs, allergen controls, ventilation, plumbing, and staff certifications. We passed the kitchen portion. Then she entered the basement. 5 minutes later, she called us down. Water spread across the floor near the dry storage shelves. A pipe joint had been loosened. Several boxes were soaked. Worse, the moisture had reached the wall beneath the electrical panel. Lena shut down the basement prep area immediately. Colin photographed everything. Eric crouched beside the pipe. Fresh wrench marks, he said. Again? I asked. Thomas came down holding a small black device. I found this behind the flour rack. Maya took it. A remote leak sensor. Colin's attorney frowned. Many buildings use those. It is not ours, Eric said. The device had a serial number. Maya photographed it. Lena crossed her arms. I am documenting suspected tampering. You have 24 hours to dry the area, repair the pipe, and receive electrical clearance. Until then, no basement food preparation. We could keep serving, but we had lost half our storage and prep space on a fully booked weekend. Colin leaned toward me. Some places know when it is time to die. I smelled Eric's anger before I saw him move. His alpha scent struck the basement like a door slamming. Cedar and smoke flooded the air. Colin went pale. His attorney stepped back. Eric stopped 1 foot from him. Say that about my parents' restaurant again. Colin swallowed. Control your instincts. I am controlling them. The quietness of his voice was more frightening than a shout. I touched Eric's sleeve. He looked at my hand. The scent pressure eased immediately. Colin noticed. So did everyone else. I removed my hand. We have work to do, I said. The next 24 hours became a test of every person in the building. Nora moved cold prep to the upstairs pastry station. Aunt Mina gave up half her space without complaining, which proved the crisis was real. Thomas called a contractor whose son had proposed to his wife at table 9. Jay created a live fundraising dinner called Save the Basement, then deleted the word basement after Maya explained that it sounded like a horror film. Lena Ortiz returned at 11 the next morning. We passed. Before she left, she handed Maya a note. The device manufacturer keeps activation records, she said. That serial number was registered 2 weeks ago. To whom? Maya asked. Lena glanced toward Colin, who waited by the entrance. Mercer Site Services. The dining room went silent. Colin's attorney began talking before anyone accused him. The device may have been left by a subcontractor conducting authorized due diligence. Behind a flour rack? I asked. Eric took the note. This is formal interference. Colin's expression hardened. It proves a device belonging to an affiliate was present. It does not prove anyone loosened a pipe. No, Maya said. But it proves enough to request an injunction if another incident occurs. Colin looked at Eric. You are risking the deposit. Eric's face revealed nothing. I am aware. The developer left. Maya waited until the door closed. Then she turned on Eric. You are not merely risking the deposit. If Mercer sues, the firm's credit facility becomes exposed. Eric said, Not here. Your partners vote tomorrow. Daniel looked between them. What vote? Maya's expression changed. Eric said, Maya. No, she replied. He should know what this costs. What costs? I demanded. Maya placed both hands on the bar. Eric pledged his equity in our consulting firm as security for the restaurant's emergency loan. The room tilted. Eric's gaze cut toward her. That was confidential. You lost the privilege of secrecy when you decided sacrifice was a communication strategy. I stared at him. You used your company to cover this place? It was temporary. When? After the estate entered probate. That was 18 months ago. He said nothing. Maya continued. The partners want his shares liquidated before the Mercer closing. If he refuses, they can remove him as managing partner. Why would the restaurant sale affect your firm? I asked. Because the debt is not clean, Maya said. Eric moved between us. That is enough. No, I said. It is the first useful sentence anyone has spoken. His eyes met mine. The financial details are complicated. I understand debt. You understand kitchens. The insult was deliberate. It worked. I stepped back as if he had struck me. Maya whispered, Eric. He looked sick with regret, but I was already walking toward the kitchen. Daniel. I did not stop. He followed me through the swinging doors. The line cooks pretended not to watch. I entered the dry pantry and reached for the sale notice we kept pinned to the wall. Eric came in behind me. Do not walk away from me. I turned. You left for 7 years. That is not the same. You decide what I can handle. You decide what I deserve to know. You sell the restaurant, risk your company, and call me a chef as if that means I cannot read a contract. I was trying to stop you from asking the wrong question. What is the right one? His face went still. The pantry door slammed behind him. The old latch dropped from the vibration. I heard it click. Neither of us noticed at first. What is the right question, Eric? I asked again. He looked at the sale notice in my hand. Ask why I needed Mercer's deposit before closing. Why? Ask whose name is on the oldest loan. My anger faltered. What are you talking about? He closed his eyes for 1 second. Daniel, your mother refinanced the restaurant 8 years ago. The lender required a personal guarantor. She used a power of attorney you signed before culinary school. The pantry seemed to shrink. No. The signature was legal. The disclosure was not. She intended to remove you after the renovation, but your father's illness changed everything. The loan was sold twice. Penalties accumulated. When they died, the lender accelerated the balance. How much? 2.1 million. I could not breathe. Eric stepped toward me. I raised a hand. He stopped. My name is on $2 million of debt? Not after closing. You signed away the restaurant to pay my debt. I signed a conditional sale agreement to obtain enough deposit capital to settle the immediate claim and stop the lender from filing against you personally. Personally? They could have seized your wages, your accounts, any future business you opened. I pressed my back against the shelves. The old recipe card inside my pocket felt suddenly heavy. You should have told me. I was going to. When? After the building came down? After your name was clear. That was not your choice. I know. You keep saying that after you make the choice anyway. His scent shifted. Not anger. Pain. The pantry was too small for it. My blockers had weakened during the inspection crisis, and warm pear rose from my skin. Eric's cedar answered before he could stop it. He took 1 step back, increasing the distance between us. I should leave. The door is locked. He turned and tested it. The latch would not lift. I laughed, but the sound broke in the middle. Perfect. I will call Thomas. He reached for his phone. There was no signal in the pantry. Of course there was no signal. The room had been built inside the oldest brick wall of the building. It blocked phones, ventilation, and apparently good judgment. Eric knocked hard on the door. The kitchen noise swallowed it. We wait, he said. I looked at the shelves instead of him. Flour, rice, dried mushrooms, pear preserves from Aunt Mina. The ordinary ingredients of a life our parents had built while hiding a disaster in my name. How long have you known? Since probate. 18 months. Yes. And you never called. I called 6 times. You hung up before voicemail. His silence answered. Why? Because hearing your voice would have changed the plan. What does that mean? It means I had to solve the debt before you came home. I am not a problem you solve. No. His voice lowered. You are the reason I keep trying. My pulse became painful. The scent blockers at my neck flashed amber, warning that stress had compromised the dose. Eric saw the light. His expression changed. You need air. I need the truth. You need to sit down. Do not command me. I am not. The alpha in his voice softened instantly. I am asking. That restraint undid me more than pressure would have. I sat on a crate of rice. Eric lowered himself to the opposite wall, leaving as much space as the pantry allowed. He loosened his collar and increased his blocker setting. The silver device pulsed, cutting his scent until the air felt emptier. You are hurting yourself, I said. I can tolerate it. You always say that, because it is usually true. Was it true when you left? His gaze lifted. No. The answer came without hesitation. What happened that night? I asked. You cooked for me. I remember that part. You told me the dish was made from leftovers because our parents had spent every dollar on the renovation. I remember. You said imperfect ingredients could still become something worth choosing. My throat tightened. I was talking about food. No, you were not. The pantry light buzzed above us. Eric reached into the inside pocket of his shirt and removed a small plastic sleeve. Inside it was another scrap of paper. Not the recipe card. A note. I recognized my handwriting again. Stay until morning. I had written it on the back of a supplier receipt and pushed it beneath his coffee cup after we nearly kissed on the roof. He had left before morning anyway. You kept that too, I whispered. I kept everything. Except me. His control broke. Not violently. Not loudly. His face simply opened, and 7 years of regret looked back at me. I thought leaving was the only way not to take advantage of you, he said. Our parents had just married. You were an Omega working under their roof. I was older. I had money. I had alpha status. Every part of the situation gave me more power than you. So you chose for me. Yes, that was still power. I know. He looked down at the note. I have known every day since. The honesty moved through me like heat. My blocker flashed red. Eric stood immediately and turned away. Daniel, I need you to tell me what helps. The room had become too warm. My pulse raced. Stress, scent, memory, and the failure of a blocker did not equal a true heat, but my body did not care about precise language. Cold water, I said. He searched the shelves, found a case, and placed a sealed bottle on the floor between us, without approaching. Anything else? Stop acting like touching me would be a crime. His back went rigid. That is not a safe request right now. It is my request. And you are scent compromised. I am still capable of consent. Yes, he said, and I am still capable of waiting until you can ask without your blocker screaming. I hated him for being right. I loved him a little for refusing the easy answer. I opened the water and pressed it to my throat. He remained turned away. Eric. Yes. Look at me. He did. Come closer, I said. He took one step. Stop. He stopped. The distance between us was less than an arm's length. His scent was nearly gone behind the blocker, but his eyes held everything the device suppressed. I am angry, I said. You should be. I do not forgive you. I know. I still want to know what would have happened if you stayed until morning. His breath changed. So do I. I reached for his hand. He let me take it, but he did not close his fingers until I nodded. The contact sent a quiet shock through my body. He lowered his forehead toward mine and stopped before touching. May I? He asked. Yes. His forehead rested against mine. The pantry, the debt, the sale, and 7 lost years narrowed to one shared breath. His free hand rose to my cheek. He waited again. I turned into his palm. The air between us changed. His restraint became something living, something that trembled beneath the quiet touch of his thumb. My hand tightened around his mouth lowered toward mine, and the locked pantry suddenly held every answer we had refused to give each other for 7 years. This is where the YouTube-safe version fades away from the pantry door, the full, uncut continuation of that charged adult moment, including the consensual intimacy, the scene Eric restrained himself from beginning, and his private alpha point of view, is available on Patreon. For now, our story returns when the pantry door opens and the consequences are waiting outside. Thomas found us 23 minutes later. The pantry door opened so suddenly that Eric stepped back and struck a shelf. A bag of rice fell onto his shoulder. Aunt Mina stood behind Thomas. Maya stood behind Aunt Mina. Nora, Jay, and 2 servers stood behind Maya. Nobody spoke. I was seated on the crate with Eric's suit jacket around my shoulders. Eric stood in front of me with his collar open and a split bag of rice spilling down his back. Aunt Mina looked at the red light on my blocker. Then she looked at Eric. "If you harmed him, I will grind your bones into dumpling filling." "I did not," he said. "He did not," I confirmed. Thomas looked at our joined hands. We released each other. Too late. Jay slowly lowered his phone. Eric's voice became lethal. "Were you filming?" "No, sir." "Delete whatever you were not filming." "Yes, sir." Maya took in the jacket, the rice, and our faces. "Colin Mercer is upstairs," she said. "He brought the lender." The warmth left my body. "What lender?" Eric's expression hardened. "The one holding your guarantee." The lender waited at table 1. His name was Russell Vane, and he looked exactly like a man who had built a career around making other people feel late. Gray suit, gray hair, gray eyes. A black leather folder rested beside his untouched tea. Colin sat across from him with the satisfaction of someone who believed the trap had finally closed. Eric entered first. I followed wearing his jacket because my blocker had not fully stabilized, and because returning it would have required admitting how much I wanted to keep his scent around me. Russell looked at me. "Daniel Park, you know who I am. Your signature appears on several instruments my company acquired." Eric sat between us. "You were instructed to communicate through counsel." Russell opened the folder. "Your counsel delayed. Mr. Mercer informed us the asset may be impaired." Colin spread his hands. "I simply disclosed material operating concerns." Maya placed the leak sensor registration on the table. "And we will disclose your interference." Russell did not look at it. "My concern is repayment. The current settlement deadline is closing day. If the property sale fails, the guarantee survives." I stared at the documents. My name appeared on the first page beside a signature that looked like mine, because it was mine. 8 years earlier, my mother had sent papers to Boston and asked me to sign so the restaurant could complete a renovation. I had signed every marked line without reading the legal attachments. Trust could be another name for carelessness when money entered the room. "What happens if the restaurant meets its target?" I asked. Russell gave me a polite smile. "The restaurant's performance does not alter the debt." "What amount settles it today?" Eric said. "Daniel." I ignored him. Russell named a number slightly below $2 million. My hands went cold. Eric had used Mercer's deposit to cover part of it. His pledged firm equity covered another part. A gap remained. "How large is the gap?" I asked. Eric did not answer. Maya did. 640,000. Aunt Mina gripped the back of a chair. Thomas closed his eyes. Colin leaned forward. "The closing resolves everyone's problem. Mr. Vane receives payment. Mr. Hahn protects his firm. Mr. Park walks away without personal liability. The building becomes productive." I looked at him. "It is already productive. It is sentimental." "You sabotaged our equipment because sentiment frightened you." His face tightened. Russell tapped the folder. "I will require confirmation by tomorrow that the sale remains on schedule. Otherwise, collection proceedings resume. Eric's scent sharpened. You agreed to suspend action through closing, assuming the collateral remained secure. It remains secure. Then you should have no objection to confirming the sale. I understood the shape of the trap. If Eric canceled the deal before the debt was paid, Russell could come after me. If Eric kept the deal, we lost the restaurant. If he used his own company to bridge the gap, he could lose everything he had built. Colin had not merely purchased a building, he had purchased our deadlines and arranged them against one another. Eric turned to me. Go upstairs. No, this is a legal negotiation. It is my name. It is my responsibility. That sentence is the reason we are here. Russell glanced between us with mild interest. I placed both hands on the table. We will give you an answer tomorrow. Eric's eyes narrowed. Russell closed the folder. At noon, he left with Colin. The moment the door closed, Eric said, You had no authority to promise that. I have authority over my own name. You do not understand how quickly they can move. Then explain it instead of ordering me upstairs. I was trying to keep you from hearing a threat designed to frighten you. It worked better with an audience. His face tightened. Maya stepped between us before the argument became another 7-year disaster. There is one path that saves both the restaurant and Daniel's credit, she said. It is difficult, but not impossible. Eric knew immediately. No, she continued anyway. If the restaurant reaches the 30-day revenue target early, we can use confirmed future bookings and operating performance to secure a community-backed refinance. Eric's remaining equity can cover the risk reserve instead of the full debt. How early? I asked. 5 days. We were on day 17. We had earned $94,000. We needed $86,000 more in 5 days. Aunt Mina whispered, That is impossible. Thomas looked at the reservation book. No, he said. It is merely unreasonable. Nora emerged from the kitchen. I prefer unreasonable. Impossible has terrible hours. Jay raised his phone. We can live stream a tasting event. Eric shook his head. No fundraising spectacle. I turned to him. Why? Because people should not have to buy our private crisis. They would be buying dinner. Daniel, you sold the building to protect me without asking. Let me fight for it without asking you. His eyes held mine. Then he looked at the staff gathered around us. All expenses documented, he said. No false claims, no public disclosure of the debt. Maya exhaled. I nodded. We do it honestly. The plan became the biggest service Han Park Kitchen had attempted in 20 years. We called it The Last First Dinner. The title came from my mother. Whenever a menu changed, she said the final service of the old menu was also the first dinner of the next version. We offered 3 seatings over 1 weekend, a tasting menu built from dishes created by both sides of our family. Aunt Mina's chestnut cake returned in miniature form. Thomas contacted former employees and invited them to serve 1 course each. Nora designed a vegetarian dish that made Eric stop speaking for almost a full minute, which she considered a higher honor than a review. Jay's video announcement reached 2 million people. Reservations sold out in 9 minutes. A waiting list formed. A local food critic requested a seat. Then the reservation platform refunded every guest. I found out at 4 in the morning when my phone began vibrating across the prep table. Payment canceled. Reservation canceled. Payment canceled. 320 messages arrived in 12 minutes. Jay ran into the kitchen holding his laptop. The system says the business account requested a mass refund. Eric came downstairs barefoot, his shirt half-buttoned. I did not authorize it. Maya joined by video call. Someone used an administrator credential. Who has access? I asked. Eric, me, Thomas, and the old manager account. Thomas went pale. The old manager was dismissed 3 months ago. Eric opened the access log. The login originated from a hotel across the street. Colin Mercer's company had leased a conference suite there for due diligence staff. This time, the sabotage had a digital trail. Maya called the police and our attorney. Jay posted a calm explanation that technical interference had canceled reservations and that guests could rebook through a temporary link. Within an hour, every seat returned. Within 2 hours, people had donated enough to cover processing fees, even though we had not asked. By breakfast, a reporter waited outside. Colin issued a statement denying involvement. Then Thomas remembered the engineer's card. The engineer who had come to the refrigerator incident agreed to speak with Maya. He had received instructions from a Mercer project manager to enter through the basement during service. He had also seen the old restaurant manager in the hotel conference suite. The former manager had been fired for stealing wine. Colin had hired him as a site consultant. The police obtained the hotel access records. The old manager confessed by lunch. He admitted loosening the refrigerator panel, planting the leak sensor, opening the pipe joint, and using his old credentials to cancel the event. He said Colin never ordered sabotage directly. Colin simply told him that every failed inspection increased the redevelopment bonus. Indirect language. Consultant language. The kind of sentence people used when they wanted consequences without fingerprints. Our attorney filed for an emergency injunction. The sale could not close while interference claims were investigated. We had time. We still needed money. The last first dinner began on day 21. At 5:30, guests lined the sidewalk beneath the repaired awning. The P in park no longer flickered because Eric had climbed a ladder that morning and replaced the transformer himself. At 5:45, Aunt Mina discovered that someone had arranged white peonies in the private dining room. She accused Eric of romance. He claimed they were part of the event budget. Maya checked the receipts and announced that he had paid personally. At 6, the doors opened. For 4 hours, the restaurant became what our parents had believed it could be. Not a museum, not a debt, not a piece of land waiting for glass towers. A living room large enough for strangers. Thomas greeted couples who had celebrated engagements there. Former staff returned with children. A retired dishwasher brought the first dollar he had earned at the restaurant, framed in cheap plastic. Nora ran the line with terrifying precision. Jay filmed only the food and the guests who consented. Eric stayed near the pass in a black suit. He had no official role, which meant he repaired chairs, carried plates, checked payments, answered lawyers, and quietly replaced my water whenever I forgot to drink. At the end of the second seating, the food critic entered the kitchen. Her name was Elena Ruiz. She had reviewed my first restaurant job and described my sauce as ambitious but emotionally confused. I had hated her for 3 years and later admitted she was right. She tasted Nora's mushroom course, Aunt Mina's cake, and my mother's stew. Then she asked, "What dish explains why you came back?" The kitchen went silent. I looked at Eric. He looked away first. "I am still deciding," I said. Elena nodded. "That usually means you know." She left without asking for dessert. At 11:30, the final guests applauded the staff. Our weekend revenue crossed $167,000. With catering deposits and future reservations, we had met the target. Maya calculated twice. Thomas calculated a third time because he trusted paper more than screens. Aunt Mina opened a bottle of rice wine she had hidden from the inventory system. Jay cried into a tray of clean napkins. I looked for Eric. He was gone. His coat no longer hung by the office door. The folding bed upstairs had been stripped. One monitor was missing. On the desk, I found the original 30-day agreement, the recipe card, and a small brass key. Beneath them lay a note in his precise handwriting. "You proved it can survive. I will finish the debt. The restaurant is yours." He had left again, before morning, without asking me to follow. I ran downstairs. Maya stood near the bar, already holding her phone. "Where is he?" She looked guilty. His partners called an emergency vote. He went to the firm. He resigned. The room became distant. What? He sold his remaining shares tonight. The payment closes the debt gap. He gave up his company. He gave up control. He will keep a small advisory interest. For me. For the restaurant, Maya said. I looked at her. She sighed. For you. Obviously for you. Anger arrived before gratitude, because anger was easier to carry. He did it again. Yes. He made the decision alone. Yes. He left a note like 7 years ago. Yes. Maya's expression softened. But this time he left a key. I looked down at the brass key. It belonged to the front door. Not ownership papers. Not a goodbye. A choice. Aunt Mina came beside me. Go get the idiot, she said. Where? Maya checked the time. He has one final meeting with Russell Vane at midnight. Private dining room at the Mercer Hotel. Thomas handed me my coat. Nora handed me the recipe card. Jay lifted his phone. No filming, everyone said. He lowered it. I crossed the street in my chef's coat. The hotel lobby glittered with marble and people who had never cleaned grease from a ceiling vent. A security guard tried to stop me. I showed him the key as if it opened more than one door. The private dining room was on the 23rd floor. I reached it at 11:58. Eric sat at a long table with Russell Vane, Colin Mercer, 2 attorneys, and a stack of closing documents. He looked up when I entered. His control failed in the same small way it had on the first day. His pupils widened. His hand tightened around a pen. Colin stood. This meeting is confidential. So was the sabotage, one attorney whispered to another. Eric rose. Daniel, why are you here? Because you left. I left you the restaurant. You left me a building full of people and another debt I did not ask for. The debt will be settled tonight. With your company. My choice. Exactly. Russell removed his glasses. I assume this concerns the guarantor release. It concerns all of it, I said. I placed our revenue statements on the table. Maya had sent them during the elevator ride. Confirmed bookings, catering deposits, event contracts, community refinance terms. We met the operating target, I said. The restaurant qualifies for replacement financing. Eric's equity reserve covers the lender's risk without a property sale. Russell read the first page. Colin's face changed. The purchase agreement is binding. Your interference breached it, Eric said. That is disputed. Your consultant confessed. He acted independently. Then your company should choose consultants more carefully. Russell studied the numbers. This proposal requires a clean title and a subordinated reserve. Maya entered behind me. She carried the documents Eric thought she had delivered electronically. You have both, she said. Eric stared at her. You helped him. I helped the only person capable of stopping you from converting love into a tax-deductible loss. One attorney coughed to hide a laugh. Maya placed a release agreement beside Russell. The lender receives full principal, negotiated penalties, and reserve protection. Daniel's personal guarantee terminates immediately. The restaurant remains in the estate trust until title transfers under the parent's succession directive. I looked at Eric. What succession directive? His face gave away the answer before he spoke. Our parents amended the trust 6 months before the accident. They wanted the restaurant transferred jointly to us if we ever agreed to run it together. You knew? I found it during probate. And you decided I would not want it. I decided I would not chain you to it. Stop deciding what freedom looks like for me. The room went silent. Eric looked at the key in my hand. What does it look like? He asked. I placed the key beside the recipe card. It looks like being asked. Something in his expression broke open. Russell signed the guarantor release. Colin refused to sign the sale termination until Eric's attorney placed photographs, device records, hotel access logs, and the former manager's confession in front of him. The attorney explained the damages claim in a voice so calm that Colin's red pocket square seemed to lose color. At 12:26, the sale agreement ended. At 12:27, my $2 million guarantee ceased to exist. At 12:28, Eric slid the restaurant trust documents toward me. "Take your time," he said. It was the first choice he offered without hiding a preferred answer inside it. I did not sign that night. Instead, I returned to the restaurant and worked the final dinner service of our 30-day challenge. That brings us back to the plate of midnight pear galbi. 30 days after I found the orange sale notice, every table was occupied. The city inspector sat near the window. The engineer who had helped expose Colin sat with Thomas. Maya occupied the bar with 3 former partners from Eric's firm, all pretending they had not come to see whether he knew how to carry plates. Colin stood outside behind police barriers while reporters asked about the sabotage investigation. Aunt Mina had placed the rolling pin beside the register as a ceremonial object. I finished the final savory course and called for dessert. Eric entered the kitchen wearing a chef's jacket. It fit badly across his shoulders. Nora looked at him as if an unlicensed animal had entered her station. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Finishing the menu." "You are not trained. You taught me one dish." My pulse changed. He held up the recipe card. "You earned it back," I said. "No." He placed it beside my cutting board. "I am asking to use it." The distinction mattered. I nodded. For the next 20 minutes, Eric cooked the dish I had made during our last night together. He sliced the pears too thick. He nearly burned the glaze. He ignored Nora's advice until she threatened him with a ladle. He asked me before changing the heat. He asked me before tasting the sauce. He asked me before placing his hand at my waist to move behind me in the narrow line. Every question repaired something. When the dish was ready, he carried the plate into the dining room himself. The cameras turned toward us. He set it on table 1, where the sale contract had been signed. Then he looked at the guest. 7 years ago, Daniel made this dish from ingredients our parents could not afford to waste, he said. He told me imperfect things could still become worth choosing. My eyes burned. Eric continued. I misunderstood him. I thought protecting what mattered required leaving before I could damage it. I was wrong then. I was wrong when I tried to save this restaurant without trusting him with the truth. Daniel saved the business because he gave people a choice. Tonight, I am trying to do the same. He turned to me. The entire dining room disappeared. "Daniel Park, will you consider running Han Park Kitchen with me?" Aunt Mina whispered. That is not the question he should ask. Everyone heard her. Laughter moved through the room. Eric's ears turned slightly red. I folded my arms. She is right. His gaze held mine. He reached into his pocket and removed the brass key. Then he placed it beside the plate. "Will you consider staying?" he asked. "Not because our parents wanted it, not because the debt forced you back, and not because a contract says we share anything." The room became silent. He lowered his voice. "Will you stay because what happened between us meant something, and because you might want to find out what it can mean now?" There was no command in his scent, no alpha pressure. Only cedar, black tea, and 7 years of waiting offered without demand. I took the key. Then I picked up the charred pear from the plate and tasted it. Eric watched me with the fear of a man awaiting judgment. "You overcooked it," I said. The room laughed again. He did not. "What is your answer?" I stepped close enough to straighten the collar of his chef's jacket. "My answer is that you are going to make it again. Daniel." After service, hope moved across his face so openly that my own restraint nearly failed. He leaned toward me and stopped. "May I kiss you?" he asked. The cameras waited. Our staff waited. Aunt Mina lifted the rolling pin in warning. I looked at the restaurant our parents had built, the contract we had defeated, the recipe card Eric had preserved, and the key I now held by choice. Then I looked at the alpha who had finally learned to ask. I touched 2 fingers to his mouth. "Not for them," I said. His eyes darkened. "For us?" I removed my hand and walked toward the kitchen doors. "Lock the pantry after service," I said. The dining room erupted. Eric remained still for 1 stunned second. Then he followed me. And that is where the YouTube-safe version ends. The real answer, the uncut continuation after the final service, the consensual adult scene behind the locked pantry door, Eric's full alpha point of view, the complete debt contract truth, the private aftermath, and the bonus family restaurant epilogue are available on Patreon. Those chapters include the moments YouTube could not show and the emotional closure we did not give the cameras. The link is in the description and pinned comment. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Because I don't make any money from YouTube, I depend entirely on paid Patreon subscriptions to keep this channel alive and continue creating content for you. I will keep posting here on YouTube, but if you want to support my work, please visit patreon.com/FelixBL. The link is the very first one in the description below. Before you go, tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from and share your thoughts on the story.